My name is Lisa Graumlich, and I am the Dean of the University of Washington College of the Environment. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2020 Doug Walker Lecture entitled Mass Awakenings, Perspectives on Nature, Health, and Humanity's Path Forward. Before we dive in, though, I want to begin by acknowledging that the campus and the buildings of the University of Washington are on the land of the Coast Salish peoples, land which touches the shared waters of all the tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. I also want to acknowledge the pivotal moment that we find ourselves in as a nation. These are hard times. And to all of you, and especially to our supporters, alumni, students, staff, and faculty of color, I want to know that I stand with you and I support you. So I want to take a moment to talk about Doug Walker, the namesake of the lecture series. Doug was instrumental to the founding of the College of the Environment in 2009 as a co-chair of the advisory board and as a passionate advocate for the environment. Doug passed away tragically in 2016. And in order to carry on and amplify Doug's passion for outdoor recreation and his unending desire for learning, the College of the Environment, in partnership with the Doug Walker Endowed Professorship, hosts this annual lecture on nature and health. So I would like to acknowledge our valued Doug Walker lecture sponsors who help us share new ideas each year. Thank you especially to our founding sponsor, REI. You have been with us in creating this vision since day one. And thank you to our presenting sponsors, the Seattle Foundation and Nature and Health at the University of Washington. Thank you to our friend sponsors, the Wilderness Society and Filson. Your commitment makes tonight's event possible, and we are grateful for your partnership. So before I introduce our guests, a couple of those Zoom housekeeping items. We are recording this discussion and we will make it available on the college's YouTube channel shortly, and we will send out a follow-up email with a link. And if you have any questions for our panelists, please email them to us at, get out your pencil, coenvcom@uwedu. I'm going to do that again, coenvcom@uwedu. And we'll be monitoring that email throughout the conversation, and we will get to as many questions as we can. So let me introduce who is joining us today. John Foley is a world-renowned climate scientist, sustainability expert, author, and public speaker. He is also the executive director of Project Drawdown, the world's leading resource for climate solutions. His work focuses on understanding our changing planet and finding new solutions to sustain the climate, ecosystems, and natural resources on which we all depend. You can find him at Global Eco Guy, GLOBOLECOGUY, one of the best Twitter handles out there. We also have with us Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, who is a marine biologist, a policy expert, a writer, and a proud Brooklyn native. She is the founder of Urban Ocean Lab, a think tank for the future of coastal cities, and founder and CEO of Ocean Collectiv, a consulting firm for conservation solutions. And hot off the presses, she just, in the last couple of weeks, released a book entitled All We Can Save, Truth, Courage, and Solutions for a Climate Crisis, which is filled with provocative and illuminating essays from women at the forefront of the climate movement. If you go on her Instagram, there are all these people like hugging their book, reading their book in nature, reading their book. So, and it's thick. It's thick. It's not only thick, it's like at the very end, this is like, you get to climate solutions. Oops, and it talks about drawdown. So, truth, courage, and solutions. You can find Ayana at Ayana Elizabeth. Did I get that right? Ayana Elizabeth.
Eliza, it's half my middle name.
Okay, so here we go. It gives me great pleasure to be with a very old friend and a new friend. And so I get to start you with some questions that are a tad personal. Ayana, this
Ooh,
friendship has been existing for half an hour now.
no, that's
Um,
how we do.
so it's sort of a simple question, but I think it's going to lay the groundwork for our conversation. So um, I could have introduced you with all of these academic kind of credentials. You all are very credentialed in that way.
We
Yet
have
you have followed pathways that are anything but traditional. So, how have these pathways unfolded, and how have the choices you've made along the way that may have seemed risky but turned out to be essential for the work you're doing now?
Hmm. Um, it's hard to answer this question in a short version because, of course, our lives are complicated. Like, how did I end up doing what I'm doing? Is a there's a lot that goes into that, but I think there's there's a few things that stand out in this current moment when you ask me. I'm sure if you asked me tomorrow, it would be a different answer. But right now, I'm thinking about well, one, I never intended to be an academic scientist, which is pretty rare for someone pursuing a PhD in science. I never wanted to be a professor. I never wanted to be like a full-time researcher. It was never part of my dream. Like
Hmm.
heaps and heaps and heaps of respect for people doing that work. And I'm glad to have the training to be able to understand what they're writing about and see how I can help to use that to inform policy or to talk about it to the public. And so that training is invaluable, but it was not a detour for me. Like
Hmm.
that was never a path that I intended. And sort of my PhD advisor was pretty amused by it. He was like, "Wait, you don't want to be a scientist?" I was like, "No, I just want to learn enough science to be dangerous." Mission accomplished. Um, and so for me, the question has always been um, this Venn diagram, right? How can we figure out like what are we excited about, right? Like I'm
Hmm.
really excited by these like solutions for environmental problems that also care about people, like all this mashup of things I care about, right? Science and policy and people and justice. And I'm a generalist. So, I mean, even doing a PhD, each chapter was in a completely different discipline. I did ecology, I did fisheries management, I did sociology, I did behavioral economics, I did policy. Like those were the chapters. They were,
Hmm.
and to me, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning is like thinking about conservation and climate solutions as this crazy puzzle. And I like to be part of that, play the role of like, okay, where even are the pieces? Who knows
Hmm.
what shape they are? Like, how can we
Hmm.
put them all together? Whereas some people are like, let me tell you everything about this one corner piece. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
great,
yeah.
tell me everything. And so I've really cultivated the I have this desire to be, to help put the puzzle together. And so you need to know enough about the pieces to do that, but you don't need to know everything. But you need people to answer when you call, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so you have to give something back in order to be asking those things. So the thing that I've been able to give back is to say, like, for whatever reason, people listen to me these days. They ask me to come speak at places. So, like, I can then carry their work forward, whether that's in the form of an anthology or through inviting people onto my podcast or on social media. I think it's this amazing opportunity that we all have to different levels to like shine a light on all the good things, all the good work that's happening because we often think about climate as like, how do we avoid the bad stuff?
Yeah.
But we need to think about it as much, if not more so. It's like, how do we get more of the good stuff? Like, what is working? What can we accelerate? What can we repeat each other's successes and not just avoid each other's failures? And so that is like sort of a non answer to your question, but it's I've spent like the last 2 decades trying not to have an area of expertise, which makes me very hard to introduce. And like, I sometimes feel like a fraud when people are like marine biologist, because I'm going to have a PhD in it. I haven't done any research basically since I graduated. So yeah, that's me.
And so, John,
Mhm.
you want to say a few words about your path?
Well, mine's not really as interesting as Ayana's in some ways, but been at it a little longer, I guess, is really the only difference maybe in some ways. But I really did want to be a scientist. I still do. I wish the world would let me. I'd rather be an astronomer than anything else. I would love to learn about the universe and just pursue research and learn about the cosmos. That's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. But after a while, when I was a college student, I said, those other planets, they can wait a while. This one's a hot mess, and we got to do something about it. And when I was a kid, my mother passed away in a very long and bad illness, and I was her caregiver. And I made her a promise the day before she died that I would try to do the best I could do with my life. And I thought just being an academic astronomer wasn't really the answer to that. So I shifted gears and I got my degree in atmospheric science and like oceanography from Wisconsin. Washington has one of the best programs in your college, Lisa, too. Outstanding people there. And but I did go into the academic world. I later became a professor at Wisconsin, then at Minnesota. But I was a frustrated academic. One, I could never sit still. I kind of hopped from topic to topic every 3 to 5 years.
When
Around
I
the,
met you, you were focused on agriculture.
Yep.
It was like at a conference at Aspen Institute, and I was like, this guy knows so much.
Yeah, I worked on like trace gases in the atmosphere. I worked in the Amazon for a while. I worked on global agriculture for quite a while, and I just thought, hey, the Earth's got a lot of problems. Like let's look at that one and that one and that one, and and the training I had from like physics and astronomy turned out to be actually pretty damn useful for a lot of them because it just taught you how to think, how to be rigorous, how to work with data, stuff like that. But after about 20 years of being an academic, and I loved it, and there's a lot of that I really, really enjoyed, especially the teaching and mentoring brilliant young people who are smarter than me for sure, and helping them get out into the world. I then left academia and started running a science museum in San Francisco for a few years. And there's a lot of that I love too, especially sharing science and realizing the way to get in somebody's head with science is actually through their hearts. If you create these moments of like awe and wonder that can be shared with people you love, that's a way in. To share ideas around sustainability and making the world better, don't scare them. Share a vision of a better world, a world that we could build together and invite everyone to join you. And so I kind of learned a little bit more about that. But after a while, I decided I wanted to do something a little bit more hands-on. And so about 2 years ago now, gosh, it's been 2 years, I started running Project Drawdown and joined a team of some really brilliant people, including one of Ayana's colleagues as well, Catherine Wilkinson, who's just a rock star, amazing genius. Learned a lot from her and other folks. But the idea of like, let's focus on solutions. We've all heard about the climate problem, but where are we going with solutions? We need to put a big spotlight on like what you can do about this. Otherwise, we're like a doctor going into the waiting room saying, dude, you are really sick. I got nothing for you. I'm out of here. Bye. I mean, that's not good enough. Science has to go so much further than diagnostics. It has to go to like, hey, care and help and assistance. And I think I bet the three of us could all say we've kind of shifted our careers from a traditional path because of that sense of obligation and duty to making a difference in the world. And I'm just proud of how academics have started to step up more and more. We've been a little late at this, but I think we are seeing a lot more of it, especially the newer generations of younger academics are really doing this with a sense of purpose. And that just makes me really happy.
So I just need to say, I so appreciate for both of you that you really do bring this sort of whole self to your work. And I am the dean, so this is a little shout out to my students that are in the audience. That is, note how for both of them, science has been a set of tools that allow them to follow these passions versus a set of handcuffs that kind of like kept them in the lab forever. And what a flexible set of tools.
I
So
I
yeah,
never, I was definitely not a lab person. All my research was field work in the Caribbean, and I don't even do cold water. I was like, Caribbean, we're doing warm water where I speak the language, right?
That's nice.
And the one time I like was helping out another grad student with her laboratory research on coral reproductive biology, and I held a pipette and I was doing some part of her experiment with her. I made her take a picture because I was like, I might never hold a pipette again. Like, this should be documented.
Well,
I
Lisa, one of
love
the
it.
things that's really important too, and I know you know this and others do, but sometimes I think in the university world, we have to kind of remind ourselves. I've heard my colleagues, and I've said this probably before too, when you're training like PhD students, we kind of have the mold, like we're pouring a mold of something and seeing
Hmm.
what will come out. We sometimes pour a mold of like, let's make another professor because that's what we knew how to be. So we're kind of cloning ourselves. And we called all those other careers that people could have with advanced science
Right.
training alternative careers.
Right.
But the math is that like 97% of people with PhDs won't become tenured professors. That's not
Yeah.
the alternative. That's the norm. And
Right.
I think we need to do a little bit better job as a whole. UW does do a good job of this, but I think other schools need to say, hey, it isn't just the research in the lab. It's about, being more entrepreneurial. Ayana, did you learn in grad school how to start your own consulting company? I mean, I didn't learn that in grad school. I wish I had. A lot of things are kind of practical entrepreneurial skills, communication
Yeah.
skills, business skills, being a good mentor, leader. We need to do that also. People should get kind of like an MBA alongside their PhDs.
I will say that like the reason that I ended up going to Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UCSD was because they had funding from the National Science Foundation, part of the IGERT program, which
Oh
stands
yeah,
for Interdisciplinary Graduate Research and Education Traineeship or something ridiculous. And they gave like 2 or 3 year fellowships to students who like were studying interdisciplinary work. And so each program is different. Mine was a collaboration between Scripps and the Department of Economics at UCSD. And so I was specifically allowed and encouraged to do the type of work I wanted to do. And that's why I went there, because it was baked into the program that I wouldn't be pigeonholed into one small thing. And so that's a great program that the NSF has created to sort of foster this cross-discipline collaboration. And I think in some way it has helped shift the status quo in academia, because even when the funding is completed for those programs, the people who've been a part of them and the professors who've had students in them can sort of see, oh, there is actually another way of doing this. There's another way of doing this training. And I think, the work that John and I do, which is like climate solutions, more of them faster,
Hmm.
that requires us to be able to think in this broad way of problem solving and connect a lot of dots. And so the fact that academic training is moving in that direction is actually really promising for making sure we have a new generation of scientists who are able to plug into the work that needs doing and be like even more useful than John and I have sort of back calculated our way into this work, as opposed to the new generation that's just like they're going to emerge from school just like ready.
Yeah.
I hope.
yeah. I remember.
So
Oh, sorry. I was just going to one quick thing. It's Lisa. I think at the same time you started UW, I was just going to University of Minnesota to found something called the Institute on the Environment, which isn't a whole college, but it's similar to what you have
mhm.
in the sense it was like a without its own faculty. We just stole them from other departments, but we had a couple hundred faculty and hundreds of students who were kind of working on these cross-disciplinary things. And I remember interviewing with the provost. And he said, well, we want to connect, this discipline to this discipline and be interdisciplinary. We want to bring together the different departments of the campus. And I'm like, oh, so you want to build like a staircase or an elevator inside the ivory tower? He's like, yes, that's exactly what we want. I'm like, dude, that's not what you want. What you really need is a chainsaw and open the damn windows and doors, because the real world is where the interesting stuff is. If you bring what
Right.
science knows into real world problems, you're going to learn a lot more than you're going to share, by the way. But that's where the real work happens. And that's where the disciplines can come together. When you focus on a real problem in the real world, suddenly all that academic division doesn't matter. You are learning really on the fly and you're doing some good, which is what we're supposed to be doing in the first place. And he said,
Mhm.
you're hired, this, like,
Mhm.
okay, I thought I was getting fired, not getting the job by saying that, but it turns out that that kind of works. And I've watched your leadership, Lisa, as well in this, that universities are beginning to kind of remember their core roots. I mean, of the land grant universities and of course sea grant universities later, the land grant universities of this country were founded in 1862 thanks to the Morrill Act. We were in the Civil War, folks. And leaders of our country thought, it might be a good idea to have some investment in enhancing the knowledge of our greater public towards good public work. Can you imagine us doing that today? But they did that during the Civil War. I mean, it wasn't perfect,
Yeah.
but I think it's one of the best investments in American history.
So let's dig in. So we're going to fast forward. And I convinced you to join me tonight with a title that goes Mass Awakenings, Perspectives on Nature, Health, and Humanity's Path Forward. When I called you up,
Tiny topic.
start up, right, and said, Mass Awakenings, let's talk about this. Tell me sort of what this means to you. Recent events, nature, humanity.
I mean, I think 2020 has been an awakening for anyone who has their eyes open even a crack, right? It's been the mashup of so many things that have been building for so long. COVID, having a public health crisis that precipitates because of very bad management, a recession, which, only highlights the economic disparities, which sort of helps to release the tension of racial injustice in America at the same time as we're having, the craziest wildfires we've ever seen and multiple hurricanes hitting us at the same time. And we are having a crisis of our democracy. And all of these things happening at once, it's like when you're having a slumber party as a kid and there's that like one kid who sleeps through everything and you're like, how are you still asleep? Like whoever is still asleep in America right now, like sort of part of me is like, give me what they're having. And the other part of me is like, well, how are you still in the dark? And I think, that's where we are. We're at this moment of all of these intersecting crises where we can't ignore that things are related any longer. We can't ignore that they're crises. And so the question simply becomes like, what are we going to do about it? And I think what I'm hoping that will emerge from this moment is the very bespoke answers that everyone has a role to play. And the job of our lifetimes is to figure out what that is, right? And so this is also what I was thinking when you asked me that question of like, how did I end up doing what I'm doing? And it's because of this like lifelong journey of figuring out like, how can I be most useful given what I know of the problems, given the skills and the resources and networks that I have. And I think that's the question for every single person in this moment, because there are so many problems to solve and no one can solve them all. And the question is merely like, where can you make your greatest contribution? And the Venn diagram of like, what are your skills? What is the work that needs doing? And like, what will get you up in the morning? What will get you out of bed? That's where I have like really tried very deliberately to situate myself. And because there's so much work that needs doing, like as Project Drawdown shows better than anything, like the list of climate solutions is long. Like pick any single one you want, but like pick something and sort of like figure out how you can help with it. And I actually find that to be incredibly empowering and encouraging, because the question is not like, can I complete this checklist of things that I'm supposed to do as every single person is supposed to, like, I don't know, ride a bike and bring your own bottle and whatever, like, sure, do those things. I do those things. But the question is like, what is your superpower that you can contribute in this urgent moment? And so I know we're sort of skipping to the end, but like usually at the end of discussions like this, people ask like, what can I do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are you good at? And then like, do that. as part of your contribution to these solutions. Are you a lawyer? Are you an artist? Are you a writer? Are you an architect? Are you a web developer? Like, we need all of that. And so the question is, like, which organization are you going to work with? Who are you going to team up with so you can contribute those skills?
John, do you want to add something there?
No, I think I just is so beautifully said, but I mean, just to reiterate a really important point, I hope everyone in the audience is really seeing too, that, we talk about black swans, these, once in a lifetime crazy events. Our windows are getting hit by black swans like every other minute, it feels like. And what it really is, though, is these weren't like unexpected weird things. It's just we were deliberately blind to them. We did not want to see them. We didn't want to believe that climate change was really going to happen this badly. People like myself, white people with so much privilege, really didn't want to believe that our police could be so awful and brutal. I live 2 miles from where George Floyd was killed. And, it's like there were well-meaning white folks in Minneapolis who are just like, oh my God, as if the blinders just suddenly got removed. But they weren't, the problem was there the whole time. Same thing with climate change, same thing with our pandemic. Scientists have been warning governments of the world about emerging diseases, pandemics and wet markets and bad agricultural practices and zoonotic disease for 40 years as well. And so these were not unexpected. These were not, hidden away. We just chose not to see them. And I also mentioned, the failures of our democratic institutions and of our media. We have this awful, toxic media political complex that's making money off of destroying us and separating us and trying to divide us. We knew that too, but we just chose not to worry about it. We turn on Survivor or whatever. And this year has been like, yeah, the veil's been pulled back and we're like, what, holy crap. And it's been really hard to absorb it all and the implications of it all, and then to see there are tendrils of connections between all of these things. That's what's also pretty interesting. So if there's an awakening this year, it's from kind of a deep sleep when everybody else was awake. And Ayana's metaphor, that kid at the slumber party who, how the hell they sleep through that? I don't know, but that was most all of us, especially people in privileged positions in life, where we could kind of insulate ourselves from the icky, I just don't want to know about that. And now we can't.
The example of that, John, that comes to mind is, I think, during the pandemic, we've seen how it affects different communities differently, right? We know that Black people in America are dying at a much higher rate of coronavirus. We know that people who live near power plants with bad air quality, who already have weakened respiratory systems and other health problems because of being exposed to all this toxic pollution, are at a much higher risk for extreme forms of COVID, right? So there is this this mashup of race and class and governing and public health that is really hard to ignore. And the thing that sort of like puts that example over the top is realizing that at the beginning of the pandemic, when people really were staying home and staying pretty still, when so much was shut down, our greenhouse gas emissions only dropped by like a single digit percentage, right? John, it was like 7 or 8% decline in emissions. And
That's
so this like perception that like we as individuals can like somehow like just by being the perfect individuals work our way out of this, for me that was like finally thoroughly shattered. Because we want to think that if we all do our little part and change our individual behavior, that it will add up to enough. And to me, this mashup of crises that we've seen this year is proof that we like actually need to change systems. We can't just like be nicer and like and turn our lights off, like, and somehow that will solve it, right? Like we actually have to change our justice system. We have to change agriculture, we have to change electricity, we have to change transportation. Like we can't just like be better individuals. And I think that, and my vote is not enough. Believe me, I will be voting, but like, I know that my job as a citizen is to defend our democracy and bring as many people as I can with me. And so that to me has been a really big lesson from this year. And I think a lot of people have been talking about systems change in a way that I haven't really seen in the public discourse until this year.
Well, if I could just respond a little bit, if Lisa doesn't mind, it's like, you're absolutely right. I mean, individual actions are certainly not sufficient, but policy actions aren't either. Neither are business actions, neither are investment actions. Nothing is sufficient all by itself. That's one of the really painful and hard lessons to learn about climate solutions. People ask me and you and Lisa all the time, like, hey, what's the one thing you can do about climate change? And say, stop thinking there's just one thing to do. Now pick up a shovel and pick a corner and start working on it. And what you're good at is great. I love your answer. Like, people ask, what can I do? I'm like, I don't know. What can you do? I give the same answer you do. Like, just pick up a shovel, whatever you're good at, we need you. But we do need individual action, because a lot of the actions, it's estimated about a third of emissions are tied to behavioral kind of microeconomics of food waste, energy conservation, automation, where we drive, where we live. And those things are made easier through larger policy changes and system changes. But we need everything. We need the personal to the international. But we sometimes like to pick one as if it's federal policy will change everything. Like, not really. Actually, a lot of policy making around climate change is local. It's like the zoning board. It's not sexy, but like, can I put solar panels on my condo or not? That's not up to Washington. That's up to your condo board.
Or bike lanes. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it's like, will the bike lane go through that street in Brooklyn, or this street in Minneapolis, or that street in Seattle? Like, well, that's local politics. So a lot of infrastructure stuff turns out to be kind of boring day-to-day zoning and building codes and stuff like that, but that's also critical. So again, I love this all the above, because when we look at the emissions that cause climate change, they come from hundreds of little things all over the place, not just electricity, a whole bunch of them. So the solutions do too. And we got to tackle them kind of from every angle and every level of agency. So you're right. We can't just comfortably recycle our bottles and say we're done. That's not enough. But if we don't, at least, doesn't mean give up your individual actions, means go beyond it and do far more, because that's just a drop in the bucket. But that's how we fill buckets.
So from where you both sit, and I'm so glad this went to where it did, where of course we will continue to do individual actions, and we can do the math like Ayana just did, which is like, and they're not going to be enough. With this mass awakening and the fact that, like you walk your dog and your neighbor wants to talk about systems. I mean, like that didn't used to happen.
These youth climate leaders, they chant systems change, not climate change. When I heard a 12-year-old chanting that, I was like, burning over the keys.
Yeah.
Can we have them take over, please?
So how do you, in the organizations that you are sort of officially affiliated with, or the people you like to hang out with, are there new modes of collective action that you are seeing starting to bubble up? Someone might just want to speak to what? As my daughter gets so annoyed at me for saying the youth, the youth.
I think for me, it's a little bit hard to disentangle that from just like the stage of my career that I'm now in. Like there's something about like just the number of years you've been doing something that I now like have built this network of expert colleagues that changes what is possible for me, right? So the example is, last year when the Green New Deal resolution was put forward in Congress by AOC and Senator Markey, and I read it and I was like, where's the ocean? They left out the ocean. The ocean is like kind of a big deal. And I feel like a lot of my job this year has been being like, also the ocean, which is a role I'm happy to play. And so, having those conversations about like, okay, how do we make sure the ocean is a part of federal climate policy, and having that be like, there's not like a mode of organizing so much as that it's like, I know a lot of the nodes now, right? So yeah, I was having lunch with the CEO of Surfrider Foundation, which is the largest grassroots ocean conservation group in the US. And he was noticing the same thing. And I was, in a meeting with Bren Smith, who's this pioneer of regenerative ocean farming. about the same thing. And the three of us got together, we wrote an op-ed called The Big Blue Gap in the Green New Deal, and just laying out like some stuff we thought they were missing when it comes to ocean climate solutions, right? Like offshore renewable energy and restoring and protecting coastal ecosystems and this regenerative ocean farming. And so we laid that out, and then, you know, that caught the attention of some people I knew at a think tank, and they were like, let's collaborate on a memo around economics of this and the job opportunities that we're missing if we don't push forward with these ocean climate solutions. And then, you know, Bren Smith happened to ask a question in the CNN climate town hall that happened to be directed to Senator Elizabeth Warren, and said like, we need a Blue New Deal for people like me. And she was like, absolutely. And next thing you know, I'm getting called by her policy advisor saying like, apparently my boss just agreed to create a Blue New Deal. Will you help me figure out what that means and we can write it together, right? And so that's like, it's not necessarily a new way of organizing, but I think it's like this sort of like professional level where like the people who are your colleagues are actually connected to a lot of the important decisions that are being made now. And so you're able to, I don't like, influence is such a weird word these days, but like you're able to be in the right discussions where you can actually provide input into things that are going somewhere. And I think the thing that's different now is A, that like I have more gravitas, and B, you know, that I know more people, but C, that there's this urgency that people are feeling where they're much more open to collaboration now. Whereas I think people used to be like, I'll just go figure this out by myself. Now we're like, who's in? Like, it's all about just like bringing the various experts together. And so the Blue New Deal, like, could have been like each of us in our own little rooms, writing our own op-eds, but instead, no, like, let's bring this together. Okay, there's more people, okay, let's bring those people in. Oh, let's bring in the politicians. Like, oh, like who else, right? And I think that sort of more additive, collaborative approach is growing out of this moment of like, we're actually out of time. So like, whoever wants to be helpful, like, please come in. And if you're going to be a jerk and slow us down, like, I'll be very quick to cut you loose, because like, we don't have time for that either. And so I think there's just like this like very beautiful emergent problem solving intensity that's happening right now.
And it can take a lot of different forms too, I think. I love what you're talking about of these new collaborative kind of associations of, you know, activists and scientists and journalists and policymakers and community leaders, all these very visible things that are really shaking up the way we think. I kind of like, personally, I'm more of an introvert, actually. I like to work kind of behind the scenes sometimes when I can. And I love being in the room kind of quietly with folks who really seek out advice. Like, I've actually, you know, given a 2-day briefing on like climate change and stuff to the Naval War College, to a room full of admirals and generals and stuff. You know, it's like, that was really cool. I do this with like philanthropists and like billionaires and like, you know, venture capitalists and business leaders. And I don't just, you know, I guess that's just being like a teacher, but sometimes in pretty interesting rooms. But I also give them a little bit of crap, especially business leaders, saying, you know, it's not enough to declare victory if, you know, by 2050, we'll be carbon neutral. I'm like, you've just said that you're giving yourself 30 more years of causing damage to the planet, you idiot. That's not enough. Go bigger, go better, go faster. And so we got into it. One company, for example, said, oh, you know, we could actually be carbon neutral by 2022. And I said, go further, keep going. So they committed to go 50 times beyond that. They're going to do everything they can to be carbon neutral and do 49 more of them by working with their customers, working with community. They're like, hey, we could use our whole business power to affect climate change, not just our solar panels on the roof. And now Google's doing this. Now Microsoft up in Seattle's doing this, and other companies are kind of elevating the level of leadership. Nowhere near sufficient. We're not done yet. It's a teeny part of the Fortune 1000, but I think we can affect change very publicly. Sometimes we just need to be in the room and kind of kick people on the ass, as well as guide them to better ideas. And also, as scientists, we kind of have to, I think all three of us have a role as people who've been steeped in data and empiricism and truth, you know, at least in the natural world, of kind of calling BS when we see it. As we're talking about climate solutions, there's a lot of hand waving and a lot of people selling you an idea. Like, I've got the solution to climate change. Anybody who tells you that is selling you snake oil. because there's no one solution. There's going to be hundreds of them done in a lot of different ways all at the same time. That's how we got in this mess. That's the only way out. And so I
Mhm.
think we have a lot of different roles, kind of very visibly and collectively, sometimes quietly in the back room, kind of nudging people to do more than nudging, kicking them in the ass, frankly, or to call BS when we see it. And I don't know, I think we have so many different roles as science and public science kind of roles in our society that are really important. And I love that a lot of other folks are joining us in that too. It's just find your niche and go at it. We need it.
Yeah. And what you're describing is something that I'm seeing too, which is this sort of persistent raising of the bar, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not enough. Like, thank you, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
Thank you for like agreeing to play the game, but like, that's not going to be the winning move. And that's something that it's been really exciting to see during this Democratic presidential primary,
Yeah.
which took a lot of people like who've been thinking about climate policy for decades, like caught a lot of us off guard because there was suddenly like a race to the top for who had the best climate plan. And I was like, is this really happening? I mean, I expected this to happen at some point, but like maybe in next cycle. And we have a lot of people to thank for that. I think Jay Inslee running specifically on climate was a super big deal. And Maggie Thomas, who was one of his advisors, then came out of that and was Warren's advisor and made a whole bunch of new climate plans and carried those ideas forward. And we're in this moment where people like, you're not a legit candidate unless you have a climate plan. And because Biden had like one of the worst in the initial like large pool of primary candidates, he really had to step it up after he became the nominee because that was a major weakness, right? People who care about climate knew that he was not a leader on this issue and wanted him to be. And so that forced him to listen to activists and policy experts and scientists who were like, we actually can go much faster. He had the same goal that, John just mentioned. We can go like, zero emissions electricity by 2050. And now his new plan says by 2035, which is like, I'll take a 15-year up of that timeline. Sure. Right. And if we can do it faster, like we should absolutely do it faster. But I think that's the exciting thing about this moment is that at least within some influential circles, there is this race to the top. And to the extent that we can like instigate a pissing match between corporations about who has the best climate goals, like I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, if you want to be competitive about it, like that's totally fine with me. But because, this is the thing that I think is maybe missing from the corporate piece. Well, lots of things, but one thing I would love to see people do is talk more about how hard it is because of the systems that already exist that, that cement the status quo. It actually, like, I do respect that it is hard to change supply chains. It is hard to change your manufacturing. It's very doable, but like, it's going to take some work. And I think the more we can tell the stories of the transformation and of what's working and bring people along with us, then it's exciting, right? Because we're telling a story of creating a whole new way of making products and living on this planet. And so I would love for more people to like give us a peek behind the curtain as opposed to just being like, by 2030 we will. And it's like, but how the heck are you going to do that? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, but the hard work is the only work worth doing. It's like I always say there are two kinds of businesses. There'll be the climate smart businesses and the ones that are out of business. Because the companies that do that line, at least I hear it, I just, say, oh, but it'd be really hard to change our supply chains and all this. I'm like, it'll take us decades. I look at them like, yeah, that's what Eastman Kodak was saying. Yeah, this whole digital photography thing is going to be really hard. We're sticking with film. Well, they're basically out of business now. And so these are future business failures of America that you're seeing parading around talking about how hard it is. I want to see companies say it is hard and we're going to do it. That's good because, it isn't going to be easy, but that's the work worth doing. That's how businesses got great. That's how leadership is manifest, is when you tackle a hard problem, not the easy one. And this is a problem we can't ignore. Sorry, if you are in California, especially, or the West Coast, and you're not paying attention to climate change with all the fires and smoke in your face, what the hell are you doing? I mean, who are you? You know, you're not a leader. Your board should kick you out the door right now and get somebody else who actually has the gumption to solve some problems.
So you know what? As your friendly moderator, I get to probably ask one more question to you. And then there's questions coming in on my phone from
Great.
all of those people out there. But Ayana, you know, we are, at least most of us, are in and around Seattle, where the 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 blue deal, the new blue deal, is like so important to those of us that our livelihoods and our psyche are so tied to the health of the marine environment. Um, as a last question, can you tell, kind of switch us from corporations to um, how is it that in thinking about the new Blue Deal that you thought about connections to frontline communities and communities that are sort of most impacted? Because of course, with the new Green Deal, that was a key part of it. So
Mhm.
can you
Yeah,
tell
I
us a
mean,
little more?
I mean, there's sort of two sides of that, right? There's who's impacted
Mhm.
by the effects of climate change, whether that's sea level rise or storms or floods or heat waves in coastal cities, whatever it is. Like there's who's getting screwed, and we know that that is low income communities, communities of color. That's just the math. And we know also, though, you know, that we, you know, those who care about justice and equity want to make sure that as we transform our society and our economy, that we're not leaving those communities behind again. And so there's an opportunity to think about what that looks like. How do we make sure people have the job training and opportunities to participate in the renewable energy economy, um, in a regenerative economy? And you know, some of the things in the Blue New Deal look at, you know, what would it look like to have cooperative benefit agreements with coastal communities when it comes to offshore wind power? How do we make sure that the communities where those transmission lines are coming on shore have some sort of like get to participate in that? How do we think about changing our ports, which can be like extremely polluting and very bad for air quality in the places around the ports? How can we transform our ports to renewable energy? And how do we think about reforming shipping, which is one of the most polluting industries? And so there's all these opportunities to think about not just lessening the impacts on communities of color and poor communities, but how do we make sure that
Yeah.
those same people who have borne the brunt of the fossil fuel economy have a real chance to participate in this new world that we're building? And a lot of that is, you know, through academic and professional opportunities, through training, and through just making sure that the way the government structures deals has them in mind. I mean, one of the things that really shocked me and a lot of other people who read Biden's new climate plans was the commitment to 40% of the funds for climate adaptation going to frontline communities, going to
Yeah. Yeah.
these historically disadvantaged communities. That's a huge commitment, right? Like how, as we're investing in infrastructure, let's keep that in mind, that like some people have had less investment over the course of the last decades and centuries. Like we have some, you know, rebalancing of investment to do. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that that answer is super specific to coastal communities. I think it is certainly a more general point, but um, we can't, like, the bar is pretty low. Like we can do way better when it
Oh,
comes to taking care of each other, and there's no reason to leave anyone behind, right? Like as John and I have been discussing in like various permutations, like this is an all hands on deck moment. And so it's a question of how do we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to find the role that they can play. And, you know, and that benefits absolutely all of us if we can help make sure that everyone has a chance to connect those dots and plug in where they fit best in terms of solutions.
thank you, Ayana. So we have a question And I so wish we were together because this question is coming in from Usha Varanasi. And if we were together, we would have a very dynamic conversation with Usha. She's a chemist by training who then had a long career as a leader within NOAA fisheries. And so
Cool.
that building bridges and busting silos is one of her specialties. So I haven't read her question yet, but here we go. I believe we like to solve crises because it makes us look like heroes, and frenzy is exciting compared to prevention. So focusing on prevention in crises is tough, but it is what we need to teach our children and students and demand it from our leaders. The long view and steady progress requires focus and patience. There's not only one solution, but teaching respect and focus on nature and health is the most important. Usha, teaching respect and focus on nature and health is the most important. Can the speakers comment on this?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we all could, but yeah, she's right. Taking a longer view and working with nature are, the things that we've kind of forgotten. There's this old story about the new college at Oxford University, this giant, beautiful building at Oxford. It was built in the 1320s. That's the new college, by the way. And inside there are these giant oak beams in the ceiling. But in the last century, those beams started to rot and they had to replace them. So originally they thought, we'll put in steel beams and put oak veneer over them to make them look like the original beams. But somebody pointed out, no, wait a minute, Oxford has a forester, and maybe we should ask him what to do with these old beams. And his answer was, your trees are ready now. And they're like, what do you mean? Said, well, 700 years ago, we planted trees knowing that in about 700 years, you'd need to have new beams about this big for the new college dining hall. Well, they're ready now. We've been waiting for you to call. And they literally, forester after forester for 7 centuries, were kind of thinking in the long view. What's sad is that building never got a LEED certification, but it's probably the greenest building on earth in my view, because they literally planted the replacement parts for it and stewarded that over centuries. I like that story. I want more stories like that. And what I don't know, Danny Hillis, a former VP from Disney, was the one who first kind of popularized that story. What he didn't know, and I couldn't find out either, is did they plant trees again for the 27th century? I hope they did. But that's the kind of planning we need. And we just are so far from that. But some cultures and some points in history, we've kind of had that long view and saw nature as part of us, and we are part of nature. And when we do that, we tend to thrive a lot better. So I think she's totally spot on.
This phrase, the long view, that's actually the name of the talk show that John's colleague Catherine and I are dreaming about. Like, instead of The View with like women on couches about whatever, we're like the long view. That's but brilliant. With like me and Catherine Wilkinson and like Dr. Kate Marvel, this NASA climate scientist, and Rihanna Gunn-Wright, who's this policy expert. Like, what if it was the four of us digesting the news of the day, right? And talking about what that means for the world. So every time someone says the long view, I think about like this super sassy climate ladies talk show. Maybe
sign me up.
Maybe one day that would be a real thing.
Yep.
I'd watch it.
I feel like you do watch it. Like, you're the person who gets to watch the pilot.
Okay, cool. Maybe in the audience, woo.
I think it's a really important point, because it also sort of crystallizes the fact that we've been doing the opposite, right? The fact that we've been like, climate change is an engineering problem and we will like invent our way out of it, when like a significant portion of the solution is like, we need to stop messing things up, right? We need to protect and restore ecosystems. We need to like allow nature to heal. And that will actually get us like some part of the way that we need to go, is just like stop the harm, and as well as, come up with all these new solutions. And so I'm very grateful for this question. It's something I think about a lot in the context of coastal ecosystems like wetlands, which can absorb like several times more carbon than a forest on land. We always forget about coastal ecosystems, and it's like all about like tree planting. I'm like, can we talk about like marshes and mangroves grasses, right? And so to the extent that we can have some humility, and remember that like, we are one but one species on the planet. And that there's all of this sort of like intelligence in nature. And if there's a part of the solution that's like, can we just back off and like let the rest of nature do its thing, and remembering that we are part of that, right? I think part of the challenge has been this disconnect where we have used our intelligence to sort of think that we are above and outside of nature, and that we
Mhm.
can just invent our way out of things, which just it's
I'd
not.
love to echo too, if you don't mind. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
love to just because they just resonate with. I'll be very brief, but two things I say a lot about climate solutions. Like half of it is just stop doing stupid crap, like food waste, energy inefficiency, making things we don't actually need. Just stop. That's the best thing we can do. Is half of the answer is just stop the stupid stuff, and the other half is like recognize that nature is a hell of an engineer, better than we are. It built the whole biosphere on renewable energy at room temperature with zero waste, all made from the sun with perfect blueprints passed down through generations. We can't do that. So yeah, humility and just stop the stupid crap gets us halfway there.
Perfect.
Okay, one more question for each of you. You've heard this question a gazillion times, but I'm going to ask it because people want to know. What gives you hope?
I think a lot of people know my answer to that question is fuck hope. Show me your plan. What is the strategy? And it took me a long time to realize why other people didn't feel the same way. And I think it's just like constitutional, and it's like my personal psychology. Like hope doesn't motivate me. Hope to me is a very passive word that's like, hope that works out, hope someone does something about that. And I realize that is like, because I'm in the middle of so much of this work, it's a privilege to not need hope, because I have a very long list of things that I can do. And I think to me, what I would love to see more of us do is reframe the quest for hope into a quest to be of use. How can we be useful? And like, I know so much about the scientific projections, right? Like I've seen the papers, I've seen the graphs, I kind of know what the worst case scenario looks like, and I'm thoroughly terrified. And so it's not so much the science that gives me hope, except for that all of these scientific projections depend on what we do, especially in the next few years, right? There is a range of possible futures that depend on what we do. And so to the extent that I have hope, it's not based on like humans generally being good and coming together in times of crisis. It's based on the fact that like there still is so much possibility if we can just get it together. But I have no faith that we will get it together, right? Like I work every day to like push that possibility forward, or to like reel that possibility closer to reality. But I do not consider myself an optimist. I do not consider myself hopeful. But I also think that we have absolutely no right to give up on each other, on this planet, on all these magnificent ecosystems, because like that would be the worst possible stewardship. It's just like, seems hard. I'm not really sure it's going to work out, so I'm going to give up. And so I know that sounds kind of harsh, but I think for me, it is actually more motivating, because I'm not holding on to a dream. I am like working towards a future that I know is possible if we can build the biggest, strongest team. And so part of my work is working on the solutions themselves, and part of them is like, how can I help to build this team?
And I just need to say that I think a lot of, in your latest book and all of the add-on activities that are going on with that, there's ways in which all of us, all of you out there that I can't see, are really being invited in to join the team.
Yeah,
And Ayana, I'm
hang out.
super appreciative. John, And I know there's a little turnaround is fair play on this question.
Yeah.
A little inside joke there, but
Um, well, okay, the inside joke was I asked Lisa the same question about 2 hours ago on something I was filming. So that's the inside joke, everybody. What I was struck by is my answer is exactly the same as Ayana's in some ways, but I actually don't say fuck hope. I say embrace hope because I defined it a little differently. And maybe let's not get hung up on the words. I think sometimes we might use words like hope differently. Like to me, hope is a verb. It's not a noun. It's something you have to go do. It doesn't guarantee success. It doesn't mean it's all going to turn out just fine like a Disney movie or something. It means you have to risk it all. You put your heart on the line, your future on the line, everything you are on the line, knowing you could fail, but you're going to stare it down anyway because you love people, you love the future, you want there to be a better future for everyone and for the people you care most for. As long as there's one last tree on this planet, there's one last child on this planet, I'm not giving up, damn it. So that's what I call hope. And if you think hope is I sit back and everything will be okay because the invisible hands of the market or technology will save us, you're a fool. That's not going to happen. You have to lean in and give everything you've got. You call that faith, is what, Lisa, you were telling me John Lewis wrote a book where he said the same thing, but he called it faith. To me, I'm not a very religious person, so I use the word hope, but I mean that active stance of risking it all, daring to hope, having the courage to hope. And there's a wonderful book written by Rebecca Solnit, who's one of the best writers in America. She's a genius. I love her. She wrote a book called Hope in the Darkness, which I hope people will take a look at, where she kind of teases out that word. So let's not worry about,
She uses in that book, I think, the metaphor of like hope is the axe you break the glass with in case of emergency.
Yeah.
It's active. Right? It's like, all right, like let's go.
Yeah. So it's kind of the passive versus active stance. And also, and one thing that really ticks me off about climate change is we get all these people who are denying it for years and years and years, deliberately slowing it down. And then we jump over solving it. And then we get a lot of people out there who are doomist who say, we're screwed, it's too late. I'm like, no, it is never too late. And I'll tell them, like, as long as there's a whale and there's a redwood on this planet and there's a child still alive, I'm not giving up. Why the hell are you? Why are you rolling up the white flag after doing nothing to do anything about this? How dare you? People didn't give up on us and previous generations who fought like hell so we could have good lives. We owe it to them and we owe it to the future to do the same. And I call that hope. Call it what you will. Let's do it because that's what we need.
I think part of it is courage too, right? Like we had a hard time naming this book, right? All we can save. We want it to be real about the fact that we can no longer save everything. But we wanted to say like, we're not giving up. Like there's all this to save, right?
yeah.
And I think to me, the subtitle is the mantra that I choose instead of hope. Truth, courage, and solutions, right? Like that is the trifecta. We have to face the facts. We have to be informed. We have to be courageous because it is going to be hard. And we have to focus on solutions. And so that is kind of like what keeps me going. It's like, all right, what are we going to do today?
I want to shout out to your colleague, Kate Marvel, who wrote a beautiful essay about this, using the word courage instead of hope. But I guess I just don't want to get us hung up on the words because I've seen people all meant the same thing, but argue vehemently, I don't like hope, I have courage. I'm like, oh, I thought that was the same thing. But I think we're all in agreement, like it's an active stance of love and of courage and daring everything, giving everything you are, everything you could ever be for people you may never meet. And one of the tragedies of climate change, of course, is the incredible injustices it creates today between the people who caused the problem and the frontline communities that are getting kicked in the ass because of it. But also the incredible inequity over time. There will be generations of people who will live in a planet that's diminished and degraded and depleted so we can have a little party in our generation. That's immoral. That's just fundamentally wrong. And so that's another kind of injustice, is temporal as well as around class and race today. How dare we deprive future generations when the generations who stood behind us did a lot so we could live good lives? And Lisa, we were talking earlier today about how to be a good ancestor. we really need to think hard about that.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say is, you know, it's really nice to hear you talk about love as a motivating force. And that's one of the things that really shined through in this anthology. It was a theme that we did not deliberately put into the book, but in reading all of the essays through before we wrote our concluding piece, it became clear that there's this not just love, but like ferocious love, right? Like it is a like, I will do anything for you, like even if it's unrequited kind of love. And I think, you know, all of the ways that we talk about climate change, about like fighting it and defeating it and like all these sort of war metaphors, sort of lead us down a path that is like, we're not fighting nature. We're not like fighting with the atmosphere. We're trying to heal nature. And like, that's why Catherine and I talk about this concept of a renaissance instead of a revolution, right? Like, what is the rebirth? What is the reawakening, right, Lisa? And I think to the extent that that can be motivated by love, as opposed to ego or greed or whatever, I think, I mean, that's the chance of creating a world that I want to live in, for sure.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. I am going to wrap up. And in closing, Ayana, John, oh my goodness, thank you for the intelligence and ferocity and passion and undaunted way you do this work and live your lives. And I know there are people in this sort of Zoom space that are going to bed tonight with more motivation and more tools to sort of dig in themselves. And so the work you do by sharing is so important to all of us. And I want to thank you for that. So all of you out there who I can't see, bugs the heck out of me. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your support and enthusiasm for the College of the Environment and for all of the work you do. And one last shout out. I want to express my very sincere gratitude to Maggie Walker for your support, your advocacy for the College of the Environment, for your support of the Doug Walker Professor. Your enduring commitment to these ideas, to the environment, and to humanity's connection to it is one that I deeply value. Thank you, Maggie. So thank all of you, John and Ayana. Oh, wish I could just grab you and we could go out and sort of keep this going. Instead, we will just simply stay in touch. Be well, all of you, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye-bye.
Bye.